Welcome back to the Blazor Server in-depth course. In this lesson, we're going to be looking at using pages as components. And this is one of those things that when I first saw it was really mind-blowing, just how easy this is and how powerful it can be. So let's jump into Visual Studio where we can see it for ourselves. Let's create a new project, a Blazor app. We'll call it Blazor app. And the solution name we'll call Page Components Demo. Make sure it's Blazor server side, .NET Core 3.1, HTTPS, hit create. And once we're done here, what we're going to do is we're going to create a brand new page. So add new item, Razor component, and this is going to be the components. How about that? So we're going to give it a page reference. So at page/components. And then what we'll do is we'll go into shared and go ahead nav menu and we'll add a navigation to it just to make life a little bit easier, make it quicker to go there. So components and components. And let's just grab a random icon for this. I'm just going to scroll down for a little bit and hit and stop. Credit card. Sure, that works. That's the icon roulette kind of way of doing things. And now we have the basic setup. We can start working with components. I'm going to take out the code section because you know what? We're not going to need it. Instead, what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring in a component onto this page. In fact, I'm going to bring in a component that we already have called counter. Now you may say, how did I do that? Well, we have a page called counter, right? Well, we can use that as a tag in HTML, and that will bring the full page into this spot. Let's see this in action. And again, this is in some ways so simple, it seems like it's not right. So components, this is the components page, but has on it counter. And in fact, if I click 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, it goes up. Counter page is different than this. Now, just to show that this is truly what's going on, I'm going to cut this out. And I say at 4, I'm going to do a for loop. For I equals 0, I is less than 5, I'm going to put counter. So I'm going to have 5 versions of this counter on my page. Let's run this again. Go to components. I now have 5 counters, and notice they're all independent. So that's got 7, that's got 4, that's got 1, that's got 3, that's got 2. So they're all independent, and yet I can just throw them on the page wherever I want to. Now, obviously, this is not a great page. It's kind of horrible. But what it does show us is just how easy it is to compose our user interface. And that's something that Blazor is so good at, is it's all about composition of pages. It's not about creating just full pages. So far, we've created just full pages where, counter is its full page and fetch data is a full page. But what you can do is you don't have to do that. And instead, you can kind of compose these things or bring these things together and create different pages that might be more useful put together. For example, we've already used this. This navigation is really a page. In fact, if we go over here and look, we'll see that the nav menu is just a Razor page. So it doesn't have a path, so I can't go to it directly, but otherwise it's a component or a page. So the big difference with the nav menu is it doesn't have a reference to be a full page. In fact, if we wanted to, we could say at page and say nav menu like so, and then we could navigate to it. Now it's going to navigate to it, but it's going to have the default layout page that has nav menu already on it. So if we said /nav menu, okay, it's going to take us there, but it's kind of messed up. But what this shows us, what this shows us is that these Razor elements, these Razor components, which what they're really called is component, really are components, even though we're treating them sometimes as pages. So we're treating this counter as a page, but it doesn't have to be. It doesn't have to be independent as its own page. Instead, we can bring it in as a part of a page. Think for a minute of what kind of power you can get out of this. Imagine a dashboard where you want to have multiple components, maybe a chart and a graph and a line chart and maybe in some data entry section on this one page. Each of those items could be an independent component. That way they are simple because each one is just one thing instead of the whole dashboard. And then the dashboard itself is just a bunch of those tags saying, give me this chart, give me that chart, give me this bar graph, give me this data entry component. And it just kind of composes. So instead of having this really big, complex dashboard page with lots of stuff interacting and lots of code and things all over, it becomes simple. It becomes just the kind of the quarterback, the one that calls the different areas. And if you think about this from a programming perspective, this is a lot like how we write code. So instead of creating a whole big code block, we break it down into methods. And we just call the method. And that's what these pages are doing. So this page right here, the components page, instead of repeating ourselves 5 times and creating a counter, instead we created the equivalent of a method, which in this case is a component, and we called it 5 times. That's the power of Blazor and these Razor components. So that's why when you right click on pages and say add, you don't say page, you say new item, and you say Razor component. Because even though we're treating a lot of them as full pages, they are just components that can be then composed into a larger whole. So I want you to try this out. Just start with just what we've done so far. For example, maybe just add a fetch data at the bottom here. All right. So now you have 5 counters and a fetch data all at once. Just try these things out, see how they work, see what it looks like to use them, and then you just kind of play around. Now, obviously, there's more that we need to learn about these components. Right now, we're just using full pages as components, and that might not be the best solution because sometimes we have to send data to it or get data back from it. Well, we're going to do that in the next lessons. But for now, just play around with these components, maybe create a few of them, kind of compose them together, make a better layout for them than what I've got here. Right now, I'm just stacking them, but maybe put them inside divs and rows and columns and split things out and make it look really pretty. Okay? Try this out, and when you're done, then come on back for the next lesson where we start working with sending data to these components.